Beautiful. Thank you so much for that, Kenzie, our amazing music ministry. I was just listening to that, and I knew what I wanted to do next, which is to share with you a little bit more about Unity University. I realized that there is a lot of pressure out there, right, to be a certain way, to show up in a certain way, and we need to build our resiliency. We need to build our strength in the face of that pressure. We also, I believe, need to more fully understand our truth so that we know where we stand. We know how we're centered to be able to maneuver through life and through some of those pressures. And I think that this is a great program for it. As some of you have already heard, we are really excited to launch Unity University because we really believe that this is all about you, about how you recognize your truth and how these classes and workshops that we have curated together for a year-long program are here to serve you. And so I really invite you to look it up on our website to sign up. The first class of the 9 or so that are going to be part of this program is starting next weekend. And I want to share with you, especially since we're celebrating Mlk weekend, and well, actually MLK, that one of the Unity students that some of you may not have known about is actually Maya Angelou, our great poet and activist. Maya Angelou actually found freedom in Unity, found a different way of being, and believe it or not, even at age 80, she signed up to be in Unity classes. So as somebody else said, if Maya Angelou can do it at age 80, what's my excuse? So I really invite you to look up Unity University. We're excited. Reverend Chris and I would really love to have the experience with you. If you have any questions about it, just simply let me know. So, what I want to share with you today is something that I believe continues to have to be shared with us, with me also. Because if you think back on it, spiritual geniuses and saints and these avatars of spirituality for eons and eons have always shared a call for humanity to love, right? Think about the main lessons or the main teachings of some of these avatars, and it all comes down to love. And it's also what social reformers and activists like Martin Luther King Jr. actually also invited us into. It is through the power of love that they really change the trajectory of the human experience. And so the question for us today is, well, how can we step more fully into those teachings? How can we be the expression? How can we be the legacy? Right? Like, it's not just about the teachings that have been imparted in us, but as they ring true with us, as we recognize how they're connected to the truth of our being, then how do we become a legacy to it? How do we put it into practice? And so we honor this weekend through thoughts and through actions a very special reformer, somebody who acted out of love, who did all he was able to do to move the needle forward, for humanity to recognize the love that was innately within us, and somehow we had just sort of forgone our way, gotten lost a little bit. And so this is Martin Luther King, and we are the ones that pick up the baton from him, right? Like, we can't expect it to be just somebody else. Right? Like, one of his teachings is that we are the ones that this moment is here for. And I really believe that something within us has already said yes to being that expression. I don't think we would be in this time and place, not only just in this spiritual community to hear this message, to be involved in the energy of this service, but actually in the world. We were born in this time and place because we were the exact and right individuals to respond to the world of now and to move it into the next iterations of our own evolution. Now, John Lewis, who worked with Martin Luther King and was himself just a huge activist and reformer, I was listening to an interview that he did a few years back, and one of the things that he mentioned is that in all the discussions about all the things that they were able to do in the 60s, there's a lot of talk about social justice. There's a lot of talks about the laws that were passed. And he actually said that one of the things that he realizes is that it's not talked about from the point of view of love. That the word love doesn't come up as often as justice, right? Or reforms or laws or different ways of being. And yet, he knew, and Martin King Jr. knew, and all those people that were so involved in the early movement of the 60s and civil rights, that it was all about love. That it was all about love. They would gather and talk about this being a movement of love. That they loved themselves so much that they sought out fairness. That they loved others so much that they looked for justice. That they loved God enough to stand in their truth and say, we are the ones that God has sent to bring about a greater sense of love. And so it was so focused on love. And this is an opportunity for us. They even stood so much on love that they were able to even see the humanity. We would call it the Christ also, right? See the humanity in those that were oppressing them, in those that were being unjust. That's how much they stood on love. They saw beyond the actions and saw right in to the truth of humanity. Now, how can we use this power of love to really, moment by moment, wake us up from what Albert Einstein once called the optical illusion of consciousness? This optical illusion that we are separate from each other, that we have something that makes us other, right? Instead of recognizing that we are all part of this oneness, that we are all part of this beautiful universe, that we are part of this beautiful energy. And so from this sense of separation, whether separating ourselves from others, or maybe there's aspects of who we are that we have also othered and want to push to the side, don't want to fully embrace. And that is a lot of what causes this sense of separation. The moment that we believe that we are separate from something that is within us, or that we are something separate from God, is the moment that we give credence to this idea of separation. And then we start to see it in the world. And then we start to act out of it in the world. And so that is the outpicturing of inequality that we sometimes see, the otherness that sometimes we recognize or don't recognize is at play. But Martin Luther King said this about moving into reconciliation, moving into a place of oneness and unity speak rather than a place of separation. He said, the end is reconciliation. The end is redemption. The end is the creation of the beloved community. It is this type of understanding, goodwill, that will transform the deep gloom of the old age into the exuberant gladness of the new age. It is this love that will bring about miracles in the hearts of people. Now I get it. Isn't it that sometimes we look at the news and we look at what's going on in the world and we allow ourselves to get sucked into that feeling of gloom? Right? Anybody experience a little feeling of gloom in the last couple of years, right? Whether it's a challenge that we're experiencing in our own lives or the challenges that are before humanity, and we experience it, but it's okay, right? Like it's okay to honor that, but not stay in it, right? Let's not allow the gloom of the past to keep us from moving further into the possibility and the opportunities of the future, not allow the past to keep us from moving into the future that we know is alive, that we know is moving through us, and that is a full possibility when we recognize that God's love is here, that God's presence is always in us, waiting to be shared. And so we have to have faith in this, right? This is really all about believing in the miracles of love, believing in the faith that we have for each other, for ourselves, the faith that we know God is present and that God is guiding us and inspiring us to that brighter future, to that future that is possible, and actually to the future that in this very moment, it starts. Right? Because it's not a future out there. It's a future that happens right here and right now. We can claim it, we can embody it, and then we get to live in it. Now, in the midst of all of our challenges and struggles, we can realize that love and joy and grace is what can bring us together. It is what makes what is possible a reality. John Lewis actually said that he embodied the beloved community. right? Like as Martin Luther King was talking about the beloved community that was coming into reality through the different actions that they were taking place, John Lewis said that they believed that they were already living in the beloved community because it was in the connection with each other that they saw no separation. It was in the inner work that they were doing in order to do the outer work that they started to realize the oneness of themselves, of this group. And it's the beloved community that they started to create that supported all of the work. And I really value, as many of you know, the power of community. And I really value that it's an experience that I think all of us, if we're open to, can have. Because I believe that unity itself, Unity on the Bay, is a beloved community. We have challenges, we have bumps, we have struggles, but we are centered, right? Like we are reminded that we are experiencing each other from a sense of oneness, that we are able to see the Christ nature within us, and that we have a different way that we can respond to each other and do so from a place of love. Again, challenges along the way, and centered in the possibility that we are living into moment by moment of the beloved community, with faith, with trust, and really, as we move towards a greater sense of equality. Now, the question is, are we ready to enter into the new age with optimism? Are we willing to expand the ways in which we see this all playing out in the world? And how can we own our truth? How can we own the role that we have in creating this beloved community, not only here in this moment within us, in this community as Unity on the Bay, but in the outer world, like really bringing heaven on earth, as we talk about here quite a bit. Like, how can we anchor ourselves in that? Trust that it shall be revealed. Because that's part of it, right? To be able to, in the midst of all the challenges, trust and have faith that we can move through it, that we can be empowered by it to recognize more fully who and what we are, and to be open to the possibilities, to trust that we will have the opportunity to choose between separation and oneness, and trust and have faith that our choice will be oneness. Like, honor that within you, honor the strength and the power that is within you. We're gonna get the choices, we're gonna get the opportunities to choose. Trust that you will choose the path of love. And then do what you need to do in order to make that a reality. So create the practices, create the connections, create the reminders that will support you in making that choice. Now, I sat with the idea of creating the beloved community and entering into this new age, and it reminded me of a Rumi poem. For those of you who may know Rumi, he actually speaks about the beloved quite a bit, is another word for God, but it was in me, and so I looked it up, and it says, "One went to the door of the beloved and knocked. A voice asked, 'Who is there?' He answered, 'It is I.' The voice said, 'There is no room here for me and thee.' The door was shut." After a year of solitude and deprivation, this man returned to the door of the beloved. He knocked. A voice from within asked, "Who is there?" The man said, "It is thou." The door was opened for him. See, to me, what this says is that it's not for us to seek entering the beloved community. It is all of a sudden realizing that we embody the beloved community. It is being able to knock on the door of opportunity of the new age, of the new dawn, and say, I am that new dawn. I am the way the future is shaping up because I embody my truth and I embody the possibility of the beloved community. And don't you think, I thought of that man going away for a year of solitude and deprivation. I've had my fair share of solitude and deprivation. I'm ready for a different way of being, right? Like, I really am ready. Like, I'm at that door, right? Like, I'm there ready to knock. And the question is, when we knock, how will we answer? Who will we claim ourselves to be? Other or it? That's the question that's before us. Now, love also isn't something that we need to seek. It is our nature. It is who we are. It is the way that we've been created. So rather than seeking love, the question is, how can we know it more fully in us? How can we embody more fully? And Rumi also speaks to this. He says, your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against them and embrace them. I'm going to get to that last part a little bit because that was a little bit of a surprise for me. I've always just heard it end at against it, that you have built against it, which is important work, right? Like the walls that we believe could have protected us at some point, and maybe for whatever the reason, well, actually I know the reason, because we thought ourselves as separate from. In our own ideas that we were separate from God, then we thought that God wouldn't be there to protect us, and that we had to do our own protection. And therefore, we build up these walls to protect ourselves, only to find out that they're the walls that are now imprisoning us. And in a sense, as you just get the visual of building a wall, in our sense of separation, we built something up that actually created more space and created more between us and others. And so this is a time, and this is really the way that I believe we can honor the legacy of Martin Luther King, is to bring the walls down, to do the healing work that we need to do so that we can believe ourselves not only, or know ourselves not only to be one with God, but be one with all of humanity. Now, acknowledging our connection doesn't mean taking away the differences that we have, right? Like this idea of othering, right? Doesn't mean that to get away from the othering, we shouldn't acknowledge each other's differences and the ways that we've showed up. Actually, Bell Hooks, who's an author, an activist, professor who recently passed away, said, beloved community is formed not by the eradication of difference, but by its affirmation. By each of us claiming the identities and cultural legacies that shape who we are and how we live in the world. And so it's not about not seeing the differences. Actually, we're better for acknowledging the differences. And I was thinking about it. It's like, wow, to have the power and the foresight and the wisdom to recognize that there are differences between us, and even those differences can't separate us, that's power. Right? Like that's power, to be able to acknowledge that there is ways in which we're showing up uniquely, and even though we're unique expressions of God, we are all one. We are all part of that oneness. We're all part of that energy. And it's really a radical thing. It's a really radical thing to love and accept each other as these unique expressions of God. It is radical in times when there is so much division and so much that is trying to keep us divided, and we're allowing it in some ways or another. It is radical to say enough. It is radical to say, I'm going to respond in love. Tara Brach, who is a meditation teacher, and she wrote a book called Radical Acceptance and Radical Compassion. She talks about the beloved community also. She says, inclusive, loving community is an intrinsic part of the spiritual path, the vision, the aspiration, and the movement towards it. Beloved community is our evolutionary potential. It's our potential. It's the way that we are evolving. Actually, she talks about the fact that the last part of our brain that has been formed is right here at the front, right, the frontal cortex. And that's the place where actually empathy and compassion resides. And so we are just, giving ourselves a little credit here. We're just evolving into it, but we now have all the tools within us, not only spiritually, but mentally, physically, we have the tools to show a greater sense of love, compassion, and empathy for each other. It is our evolution as humans, and it is our evolution as divine expressions of God. We have to embrace it. We have to integrate it into our own path. And so the question is how, right? Like the question is, how do we do this? For me, I go back to the Christ, that essence that is within us, beyond the differences, beyond our even beliefs and separation, there is one truth, that divinity is within us, that Christ essence is what brings us all together. And Galatians chapter 3, verse 26 through 28 says, for in Christ Jesus, you are all children of God through faith. As many of you were baptized into Christ, have clothed yourself with Christ. See, We've been awakened. We have been awakened. It's no longer like we are in the process of awakening. We have been awakened. That's why we're here. That's why we're open to hearing this. That's why we're open to a new way of being. We have been awakened by the Christ. That Christ essence has baptized us, has brought us forth. And now we get to really invite all of the fruits and all of the ways in which the Christ is within us to then take hold. We can lean on that. We can, what does it say? We can clothe ourselves in that energy, in that power. And so how do we know that the walls have been built up? Well, through inviting ourselves to ask that wisdom of the Christ within us, what are the walls? What are the walls? What are the walls that are keeping me from fully knowing my oneness with God and others? It is inviting ourselves to bring up and call forth the love that the Christ essence is within us, so that when we recognize the walls that are there, we embrace them with compassion. See, that was a new thing. Tara Brach talks about how many people just know that Mlk quote to say that we just gotta find the ways in which we've built the walls. But actually it ends with, and embrace it. Because, right, like in the first video that we saw, we can't respond to hate with hate because it just multiplies hate. We can't respond to the walls with violence, right? Violence against ourselves, with guilt and shame, violence against others. We have to do it with love. And so we call forth that divine love that the Christ is within us to do that work. How do we have the courage to see the walls that have been built up for so long, and maybe in some ways we pretended weren't there? Well, we call forth the power of the vision that the Christ is, that power of imagination to not only see what is going on, but to see what is possible. We call forth the strength and the power of the Christ presence within us, to have the fortitude to move through those challenges and to be able to let go of the walls and heal the walls. That's what can bring it down. I'm reminded of Christ in you, the hope of all glory. Christ in you, the hope of all glory. But the Christ is not just this individual. The Christ is not just this presence. It's a presence that has all these beautiful attributes and powers that we can call forth in our own lives. And the question is, are you ready to do it? Are you ready to not only embrace who you are, but to embrace all the gifts that Christ essence brings into our lives so that we can move from a sense of separation to a place of oneness? How do we keep doing the work? It's work. It takes time. It takes effort. It takes practice. Again, lean on Christ, the hope of all glory, calling forth our divinity moment by moment, and really establishing ourselves, anchoring ourselves in our truth. Martin Luther King once did a speech that is called How Long, Not Long. And it goes something like this. I know you're asking today, how long will it take? Somebody's asking, how long will prejudice blind the visions of men, darken their understanding, and drive bright-eyed wisdom from our sacred throne? Somebody's asking, when will wounded justice, lying prostrate on the streets of Selma and Birmingham and communities all over the South, be lifted from this dust of shame to reign supreme among the children of men? Somebody's asking, when will the radiant star of hope be plunged against the eternal bosom of this lonely night, plucked from weary souls with chains of fear and the manacles of death? How long will justice be crucified and truth buried? I come to say to you this afternoon, however difficult the moment, however frustrating the hour, it will not be long, because truth crushed to earth will rise again. How long? Not long, because no lie can live forever. How long? Not long, because you shall reap what you sow. How long? Not long, because the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. We know our own divinity. We know who we are. How long? Not long. In this very moment, we can choose love, we can choose our oneness, and we can say everything in order to move into that promised land, into that dream that Martin Luther King had, and into the reality that is already birthed within us, is already here. All we have to say is, now is the moment, and we are the ones. So let's do it. Namaste.
Reverend Juan, what a great message. Wow. No, I'm not surprised. You're fantastic. But you were like about to fly off the stage. You were so incredible. All right, a couple of MLK quotes that are some of my favorites. Love is the only force capable of transforming an enemy into a friend. Take that in. The time is always right to do what is right. That's one of my faves. I love that one. Forgiveness is not an occasional act. It is a constant attitude. And another one of my favorites, I have decided to stick with love. Hate is too great a burden to bear, and it gives you wrinkles. I added that last part. What an incredible message, Reverend Juan. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You know, tomorrow is MLK Day, and also it would have been Betty White's 100th birthday. So go out, So go out and do something good for someone, you know? Go out and do something good for a pet. She was also a huge pet advocate. So here at Unity on the Bay, we believe in the spiritual law of giving and receiving, and now is your chance to give in gratitude. You can go green if you'd like, but we've got envelopes for you as well. The ushers are walking around, Miss Tina. If you need an envelope, raise your hand, and they will hook you up. If you want to go green, you can text GIVE, G-I-V-E, to 833-245-5645. Folks at home, you know, all the information's on the screen for you. Folks here in-house, set that up one time and it makes your life a lot easier. Then you get a text back, you click on it, and we need things to be a little easier these days, right? Oh my goodness. So I'm going to give you a few moments in silence to prepare your gift. Okay? You can hold your hand to your heart or your gift to your heart. And we will bless these gifts together. Divine love, that I am, blesses all that I give and all that I receive. Yes. So we want to take a moment to bless the incredible children that are learning in the Kids Zone. Let's get our hands together and bless those children. Children, we love you. We bless you. We appreciate you. We behold the Christ in you, and we see you doing great things. Remember that we're here to pray with you. We're here to pray for you. Prayer chaplains, if you're in the house, come on up, please. If there's something that came up during service, grab Aaron on the way out. Say, hey, Big A, let's sit down for a second. Trust me, you will walk away so centered. You'll be kissing me all over after that because he is just incredible. Our prayer chaplains are here for you. Sit with them after service, okay? And with that, I'm going to invite Reverend Juan on up for our prayer for protection, followed by our peace song.
And even before that, Faye, you were right. I almost flew off, so I almost forgot that I had a couple of announcements. Really quick, in order to move into the beloved community, there's healing that needs to take place and awareness, right, that needs to happen within us. The Racial Justice Ministry is inviting you to participate in a couple of events that are coming up. On Saturday, January 29th, we're going to have a Blacks-only healing circle. So if you are Black and need just a safe space to come and be supported in some of the healing that needs to take place as you have experienced racism and otherness, we want to provide that space for you. So go to our website and you can sign up for that group. It's going to be led by another Unity minister, Reverend Ogan Holder, and it's going to be a really wonderful opportunity. The other thing is that to celebrate Black History Month, we want all of you to come on a journey with us. And this is really simple. You go to our website and you can sign up to be part of a self-guided program during the month of February from the anti-racist table. And it's really just an opportunity. You'll get an email every day that invites you into certain meditations, certain practices, to just recognize some of what is taking place and ask yourself, what's your role within it? So both those things are on our website, and we really, really hope that you can participate and join us for them. With that, now let's stand so that we can say our prayer for protection and follow with our peace song. Together, let us affirm. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.